In the beginning, while walking through the torn remains of Yoshiwara, a Kakuji is shocked to see the extent of the battle before climbing over a roof and discovering Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Nezuko. Elsewhere, the increasingly ill Kagaya is overjoyed to find an upper rank has been killed, the first in 100 years, believing it to be an omen that fate is about to change dramatically and that Muzan Kibutsuji will soon fall to a current generation of the Demon Slayers. In Infinity Castle, Akaza realizes that his summoning means the Demon Slayers have killed an upper-rank demon. As the castle shifts, a moving platform catches Akaza and raises his position. Several giant doors were opened as they felt his presence, and the demon was transported high above the moving rooms, where he found himself passing through an endlessly large maze-like room of pillars. A biwa strum suddenly echoes, and Akaza is taken to a platform. Before the biwa woman who controls the castle, an ornamental pot is on the platform with him. As Akaza looks on, a voice from within recognizes his presence and emerges. The djinn-like demon, made up of infantile hands and a distended body, is pleased to see him in good health and remarks that it had been 90 years since he last saw him. Kyoko, upper rank 5 of the 12 Kazuki, expresses his worry that Akaza might have died, annoying him. Crouching away from them, an anxious and skitty demon comments on Gyoku's mistaken judgment of time. Tengu, upper rank 4, states that it has been 113 years since they were last summoned before fearfully ranting about the unknown number of years. The upper 3 asks the biwa woman about Muzan's presence. When she answers he has not arrived, he then asks about the whereabouts of the upper 1, not believing he was killed. As the Infinity Castle darkens rapidly with his presence, the demon, upper rank 2, puts his hand on the subordinate's shoulder and asks if he is worried about him since he is worried about his cherished comrades. Kyoko greets the demon, Doma, who returns his acknowledgement by commenting on his new pot, mentioning that an old pot he was given now has a woman's severed head on top as a decoration. With Kyoko praising his creativity, the demon progenitor denies his penance and irritably states that he knew of Kyotaro's inevitable defeat, believing Daki was an obstacle and claiming he could have won had he poisoned the demon slayers and avoided a prolonged battle. He admonishes the upper ranks as worthless and claims they now fall under the ranks of remaining humanity instead of power, further stating that he didn't expect much of them. When Doma addresses his master's upset words, asking if he had ever failed to meet his expectations, Muzan states that they have failed because the Ubuyashiki family is not dead. The blue spider lily is still unidentified. Akaza remains silent, knowing his recent failure. Kokoshibo accepts his inability to refute him, claiming that Ubuyashiki has hidden well, and Doma apologizes for his subpar skills in searching. Muzan speaks of his detest towards change, situational, physical, or emotional, and considers a steady state of permanent superior. Even while a serious head, Kyoko enjoys being touched by his master and agrees with his sentiment. While reading the Upper Five's memoirs, Muzan speaks of his anger over the first change in the upper ranks in 113 years, and demands that Kyoko never tell him of any information that is not confirmed. As Hantagu complies, Kyoko gets annoyed at being joined on his mission. Doma then appears beside him and asks what information he has to join him, to which Kyoko does not answer. Akaza then walks behind Doma and slices off the top of Upper 2's head, annoyed that Doma would try to join a mission without Muzan's orders. The Upper 1 instead informs him that he is not acting for his benefit, but addressing disruption in the hierarchy, as it undermines authority, which the Upper 2 acknowledge. Kokushibo tells Akaza to engage in a battle if he is disgruntled, but Doma claims that Akaza could never defeat both of them. He adds that Akaza is simply upset due to him surpassing his rank, despite being younger, as the Upper 3 angrily listens. Kokushibo directly addresses Akaza again and asks if he understood what he said. Trembling with rage, Akaza acknowledges his words and threatens to kill him further. Goto explains that Zenitsu had recovered 2 days ago, while remembering when he and the Kakushi witnessed Tengen leaving the district with his wives, while heavily injured. Sumi notes that Inosuke is near death, and Aoi explains that the poison has taken a severe toll on him. Kyo then shows Tanjiro a book, flipping to a page concerning the honey badger and its impressive physical durability, mentioning how Shinobu had remarked that Inosuke was akin to it. Aoi demands that Inosuke get off Tanjiro's bed, who then starts to argue and fight with Goto over the latter, insulting him for his irrational thinking, leading Aoi to try and pull him away from the Kakushi. That night, Tomeyo's cat watches Tanjiro from a tree, with Yushiro's talisman on his collar, who remarks that he is glad the Demon Slayer is well. A week after waking up, Tanjiro is out of bed now. In a letter to Goto by Aoi, She explains that Inosuke had returned to duty shortly after, and Zenitsu is on a joint mission with the other demon slayers. However, they are less than pleased by his constant racket, while Tanjiro had resumed rehabilitation training. On his journey, Tanjiro is designated with various Kakashi along the way, guided by various Kazugai crows to keep the village's exact location hidden. Eventually, he removes his blindfold and wanders at the site of the Swordsmith Village, with all its inhabitants wearing Hyotoko masks to conceal themselves. Meeting the chief, Techen Tachikawahara, Tanjiro introduces himself with a respectful, although forceful, bow and is offered sweets. Techen explains that Hotaru is missing now, but they are looking for him. Tanjiro is confused by Hotaru, but the chief explains that his full name is Haganazuka Hotaru. At the springs, Tanjiro was suddenly hit by a loose tooth. Surprised, he looked at the only person with him at the springs. Recognizing his mohawk and previous encounters, he calls out to the tall figure, Genya Shinazugawa, who greets him immediately with hostility. At the village, Tanjiro is impressed by a large amount of food Mitsuri has eaten, who claims she really only nibbled. He explains that Genya was the one she met at the springs, whom she recognizes as the brother of Tsunemi Shinazugawa. While walking to his room, Tanjiro asks Love Hashira why she joined the Demon Slayer Corps, and she becomes immediately flustered. Tanjiro offers to walk her, but she explains that she will be leaving the village soon, leaving him and Nezuko disappointed. Seeing this, Mitsuri commends him for battling an upper rank and citing that such a fight contains priceless experience. The following day, after having breakfast provided by the village, Tanjiro and Nezuko set out to discover the hidden weapon. While walking, he notes that due to not being completely healed, his sense of smell is still able to smell the hot springs. One is a young swordsmith wanting to protect something, and the other is a demon slayer demanding that he use it. He notices the swordsman is Mist Hashira Muichiro Tokito, but looks on and sees something familiar. He walks closer and is shocked to see someone with him, the same man from his dream. At the beginning of which, the young swordsmith continues to refuse Muichiro's request for a key, as well as claiming he would not show how to use it. As Tanjiro watches the argument behind the trees, believing that he should mediate, the annoyed Mist Hashira chops at the boy's neck, rendering him unconscious. Tanjiro rushes in and confronts Muichiro, demanding that he let go. He tries to pull his hand away from the smith but cannot move Hashira's arm, despite being thinner and smaller, before he feels a demon inside the box he is carrying. Tanjiro swats his hand away and demands that he does not touch it. He pulls the young smith from Muichiro's hold. Muichiro insults him for believing he could hold out on such circumstances, and reasons to make another one. The frustrated demon slayer claims that he cannot stand Hashira's behavior, and while he concurs with his statements, he adds that a swordsmith's job is still vital, as a swordsman and a swordsmith cannot exist without each other. Sometime later, Tanjiro eventually wakes up, asking if Haganazuka has been around, but the swordsmith says he isn't. He then asks for Muichiro's whereabouts, and the smith states that he is giving him the key to fend him away. The young smith says that the combat doll is capable of 108 movements and can overpower a person before the two hear a loud clash. With the smith realizing that Muichiro has activated it, Tanjiro and the swordsmith watch as Muichiro engages the battle doll in a quick skirmish. The smith states that it was built by his ancestors and is known as Yorichi Type 0. A shrill voice comments that Muichiro's prodigious skills are due to being a descendant of the wielder of sun breathing. It's Muichiro's Kazugai Crow. When Tanjiro notes that Hashira doesn't use sun breathing, seeing this, Kotetsu ran away in agony. Using his sense of smell, Tanjiro eventually locates Kotetsu in a tree and offers to help while remarking that he can't give up on the doll. Tanjiro proclaims his desire to defeat Muzan Kibutsuji and save Nezuko. But even though he could die before fulfilling it, he remains hopeful that someone will do it for him. The Mist Hashira then mentions that his sword was snapped while doing so, and he will now be using one from the doll, holding a broken off arm with a blade. Even while fighting the doll, now armed with wooden clubs, Tanjiro is overwhelmed by its speed and cannot land a hit. Hashira, in front of the Demon Slayer, teaching him about his errors in engaging the doll. A slight rain offers Tanjiro something of a drink, but eventually, he suddenly faints mid-battle with Yorichi Type 0, now armed with real swords, Kotetsu, seemingly seeing himself in Sanzu River. Having eaten and regained his stamina, Tanjiro fares better against the bladed Yorichi Type 0 and can see its moves before they happen. Backing away to plan a strike, he sprints at the doll, leaps up, goes over it as he descends, and brings his blade down to slash it. As the doll nearly hits him, cutting through his hair, Tanjiro twists his body and makes contact, breaking the blade he used and falling to the ground. Kotetsu runs to him, and the Demon Slayer apologizes for the broken sword, but the smith doesn't mind. After landing a blow on Yorichi Type 0, Tanjiro and Kotetsu watch as the head breaks away, revealing a 300-year-old sword inside the doll. The two become ecstatic at finding such a weapon, and Kotetsu, believing that Tanjiro should wield it due to lacking his own, Kotetsu apologizes for exciting Tanjiro, who accepts meekly with tears of disappointment in his eyes. Suddenly, loud footsteps shake the ground. They turn to see the now extremely muscular Hotaru Haganazuka approaching them, stating that the sword should be left up to him. Confused by the man's immature antics, they are joined by Kozo Kanamori, who promptly demonstrates this by tickling his sides. At the village the next day, Tanjiro speaks of Hotaru, mentioning that the extensive polishing he will undertake is so intense it has killed people. He grows worried for his safety and notices that even he is not allowed to watch. He relays his concerns to Genya, sitting nearby, who doesn't care about his situation and demands that he doesn't speak to him as a friend. Tanjiro is confused by his denial of friendship. Genya explains that it is because he had broken his arm at the final selection, though the former states that it was due to him hitting a girl. He offered him a rice cracker, only to have Genya smash it. Gyoko emerges and rants about his distaste for the taste of swordsmiths. Having infiltrated the Swordsmith Village, he hoped that destroying it would cripple the Demon Slayers. At a rooftop, Hatengu, having joined the upper five in the village, remembers Muzan's anger at the meeting and decides that killing everyone in the village would please him. In the woods, Genya enters the hut of his swordsmith. Although he sees it as empty, he sees his completed Nichiren sword and looks intently at it, musing about his older brother and believing that, I have to do it. What color sword would the famous blacksmith make for you? Hammer the subscribe button to find out.